You know that feeling when someone lies to your face and you believe every word? That sick twist in your gut when you discover the truth. Imagine that feeling multiplied by millions of lives. In 1943, while your grandparents huddled in bomb shelters, a dead homeless man floating in the Mediterranean carried fake love letters that would determine whether they lived or died. This isn't just another war story gathering dust in some archive. This is about the most audacious lie ever told. A deception so twisted, so brilliant, that it makes today's deepfakes and AI manipulation look like child's play. Every text you send, every email you write could be weaponized. That's what Operation Mincemeat proved. And here's what keeps me up at night. The same psychological tricks that fooled Nazi high command are being used on you right now. In social media, in politics, in your daily news feed. In the next 2 hours, I'm going to walk you through the 7 layers of deception that saved 40,000 Allied lives. You'll discover how a corpse became a spy, why love letters work better than bullets, and the terrifying truth about why this operation's techniques are more dangerous today than they were in 1943. By the end, you'll never trust a document the same way again. Everyone thinks D-Day was the Allies' greatest deception. They're dead wrong. 4 months before anyone stormed Normandy's beaches, a different kind of storm was brewing in a London basement. Picture this: January 1943. London's morgue. The smell of formaldehyde burns your nostrils. Frost creeps along the windows. And 2 British intelligence officers stand over a corpse, planning to turn a dead vagrant into the war's most important spy. What if I told you this nameless body would fool Hitler himself, that this forgotten soul would redirect entire Nazi divisions? The corpse belonged to Glinda Michael, a Welsh homeless man who'd eaten rat poison to escape a life of misery. No family claimed him, no one mourned him. In death, he was invisible, perfect for what came next. Charles Cholmondeley and Ewen Montagu didn't see a tragedy. They saw opportunity. Feel that chill? That's the same cold calculation that decides who lives and dies in every war, including the ones we don't see coming. But here's where it gets darker. They needed a fresh corpse, someone who drowned, or at least looked like they had. Glinda had died from phosphorus poisoning. His lungs contained fluid, close enough to drowning for their purposes. They put him on ice, literally, waiting for the perfect moment to deploy their frozen spy. Think about that next time you see a news story that seems too convenient, too perfectly timed. Someone, somewhere, might be playing mincemeat with your mind. The operation's mastermind was Ewen Montagu, a Jewish barrister turned spy master. His brother was trapped in America because of the war. His people were being slaughtered in camps. This wasn't just duty, this was personal. Every detail had to be perfect. One mistake, and thousands of Allied soldiers would walk into a Nazi trap. They dressed the corpse in a Royal Marines uniform, added a chain to his wrist for a briefcase. But uniforms don't make believable people. They needed something more. Something that would make German intelligence believe this was a real person with a real life, so they invented one. If you're still here, you're about to discover how to create a person who never existed, and why that skill is more valuable today than ever before. You've crafted an online persona before, a dating profile, a LinkedIn page, maybe even a fake account to stalk an ex. But have you ever had to make that persona so real that trained killers would stake their lives on it? Major William Martin never existed until Montagu and his team breathed life into him through paper and imagination. They gave him a middle name, Bill. Everyone called him Bill, not William. That tiny detail? That's what makes lies believable. The devil isn't just in the details. The devil eyes the details. First, they needed a photograph. They found a man who looked similar to their corpse. MI5 officer Ronnie Reed snapped his picture in uniform. Now Bill had a face. But faces need stories. So they wrote him one. Bill was engaged to a girl named Pam. They created love letters. Not just any love letters, the kind that make your heart ache. Listen to this line they wrote. "I do hope you've got rid of your horrible cold and are feeling quite all right again. Look after yourself properly and don't take risks." That's every letter ever written during wartime. That desperate hope that love might survive the bombs. They weaponized human emotion. But Pam needed to be real too. They found a photograph of an MI5 clerk named Jean Leslie. Pretty. Sweet smile. The kind of girl a major might fall for. They created ticket stubs from London theatres, bills from exclusive clubs, a stern letter from Bill's father about spending too much money, even an overdraft notice from Lloyd's Bank. What if someone checked the bank? They thought of that. Montagu personally visited Lloyd's, set up a real account. Real overdraft. The manager was sworn to secrecy. Every lie was backed by another truth. They planted a letter from Bill's father, religious, disapproving of Bill's lifestyle. Classic wartime father-son tension. Then receipts from from the Naval and Military Club, bills for shirts from Gives and Hawks, the military tailors, each item aged appropriately, folded, refolded, worn at the edges like real pocket litter. Remember this, in 1943 they had to physically create every document. Today, someone can fabricate your entire history with AI in minutes. Sleep tight. Bill needed friends, so they invented them. Letters discussing nights out, inside jokes about superior officers. One particularly clever touch, a letter from Bill's lodging house demanding payment. Because what makes someone more real than being behind on rent? But the masterpiece. 2 love letters from Pam, one with her photograph. The paper still smelled faintly of perfume. Montagu's secretary had dabbed it herself. In one letter, Pam wrote about their future children. In another, she worried about Bill taking unnecessary risks. Every word calculated to make German intelligence officers see a real man, not a floating prop. The real killer detail? Coming right up. Because love letters were just the appetizer. Imagine you're a German intelligence officer. It's April 1943. You've just been handed documents from a dead British officer. Your next decision will either save or slaughter 100,000 of your soldiers. No pressure. The briefcase chained to Major Martin's wrist contained the bait, but not obvious bait. That's what amateurs do. These documents were masterpieces of misdirection. The main letter was personal correspondence between 2 generals who knew each other well. General Archibald Nye to General Harold Alexander. Listen to how it starts, my dear Alex. Not General Alexander. Not, sir. Just Alex. That familiarity. That's trust. And trust is the skeleton key to the human mind. The letter discussed Operation Husky. The code name was real. The Nazis already knew about Husky. Their spies had picked up chatter. But here's the genius. The letter suggested Husky was the code name for an invasion of Greece. Not Sicily, where the Allies actually planned to strike. But they didn't just say, we're invading Greece. That's suspicious. Instead, the letter mentioned problems with landing craft availability in the eastern Mediterranean, concerns about malaria among the troops training in North Africa, complaints about supply chain issues specific to Greek terrain. Every lie wrapped in 10 truths. Feel your brain accepting it? That's how good deception works. It doesn't contradict what you know. It reframes it. The letter included a brilliant touch. It mentioned using Sicily as a deception target. We're spreading rumors about Sicily to throw them off Greece. So when German spies heard real intelligence about Sicily preparations, they'd dismiss it as part of the fake plan. The truth became the lie. Another document discussed sardines. Yes, sardines. General Nye was bringing them as a gift. This wasn't random. It established the documents were personal, informal, not official invasion plans that might be planted. Who fakes a discussion about sardines? They included a letter from Lord Louis Mountbatten to Admiral Cunningham, Mountbatten's actual signature. The letter introduced Major Martin as an expert in landing craft, explained why he was carrying such sensitive documents. Every question the Germans might ask, already answered. But here's what haunts me. They included a pamphlet on malaria prevention, marked up with pencil notes, because British forces would need malaria protection in Greece, not in Sicily. That minor detail probably killed more Germans than any bullet. The documents also contained inside jokes, references to mutual friends, complaints about rationing. One letter mentioned a bet about which operation would launch first. Human touches that no forger would think to add, unless they were brilliant forgers. Think about your emails, your texts. How many contain little details that prove you're you? Now imagine someone studying those patterns, learning to mimic them. Welcome to 2024, where AI can do exactly that. If you're still watching, prepare yourself, because we're about to dump a body in the ocean, and the current will carry it straight into history. 4:03 a.m. The HMS Seraph cuts through Mediterranean swells off the Spanish coast. Below deck, Major William Martin lies in a canister packed with dry ice. He's been dead for 3 months. The crew doesn't know they're carrying a corpse. They think it's a secret weapon. They're not wrong. Lieutenant Norman Jewell commands the submarine. Only he and a few officers know the truth. Feel that weight? That's the burden of knowing your mission involves desecrating the dead for the living. The submarine's diesel engines throb. The metal hull creaks under pressure. Salt spray stings the watch crew's faces. Spain was supposedly neutral, but everyone knew Franco's government leagued to the Nazis. Spanish officials were the perfect unwitting accomplices. They'd find the body, report it to the Germans, never knowing they were couriers for a lie. But what if the currents were wrong? What if the body sank? What if Spanish fishermen found it first and simply buried it without reporting? Every variable could unravel everything. Jewell surfaced near Huelva. a fishing town where German agent Adolf Klaus operated. Klaus was known to British intelligence. Predictable, reliable, the perfect mark. They knew he'd photograph any documents, send them straight to Berlin. At 4:30 a.m., they brought the canister topside. The Mediterranean was calm, too calm. They needed waves to make the drowning look real. Jewel ordered the canister opened. The smell hit immediately. 3 months of decay barely contained by refrigeration. Several sailors vomited over the rail. They fitted Martin with a life jacket, Mae West type, partially inflated, like someone who'd struggled in the water. Attached the briefcase chain. Double-checked it was locked. The key was in Martin's pocket. Another tiny detail. Real officers carried keys. Dead plants don't. Jewel read the 39th Psalm. I will keep my mouth with a bridle while the wicked is before me. Fitting words for launching history's greatest lie. They slipped Martin into the water at 4:35 a.m. The body floated face down, life jacket keeping it surface level, briefcase dragging one arm deeper, perfect drowning position. Then they released the rubber dinghy. Oars shipped properly, like someone had launched it in a hurry when their plane went down. Because that was the story. Major Martin's plane had crashed. He'd tried to escape in a dinghy, failed, drowned. But here's what kills me. As Martin floated away, one sailor whispered, "There goes a better man than most of us." He thought Martin was a real officer who died for the cause. Even the crew carrying out the deception were themselves deceived. The current was supposed to carry Martin to shore within hours, but currents don't follow orders. What if Spanish patrols found him first? What if the briefcase chain broke? What if sharks? Well, you get the picture. Jewel submerged the Seraph. Mission complete. Now they could only wait. And waiting, when millions of lives hang in the balance, that's its own kind of torture. Back in London, Montagu paced, smoked endless cigarettes. Every hour without news meant another hour for something to go wrong. Another hour for the Germans to prepare the real defences in Sicily. Another hour closer to potential catastrophe. Nothing. 40 hours. Silence. Then, finally, a coded message. Spanish fishermen had found a body. A British officer. Briefcase still attached. The fish had taken the bait. But would they swallow it? You know that moment when you tell a lie and have to watch it spread? When you can't control it anymore. That's exactly where British intelligence found itself on May 1st, 1943. José Antonio Rey Maria found the body. A fisherman who'd rather be drinking wine than hauling nets. The smell hit him first. Sweet. Sick. Unmistakable. He'd found bodies before. The war kept the Mediterranean well stocked with corpses, but this one had a briefcase, and briefcases meant money. Spanish naval authorities arrived within hours. They photographed everything, measured the body's bloat, noted the uniform, the rank insignia. The briefcase chain had left deep marks on the wrist, like Martin had struggled to free himself as he drowned. Every detail sold the story. The Spanish informed the British consul. Proper protocol, neutral nation requirements. But they also informed Adolf Klaus, not officially. Just a quiet word at a cafe. A photograph slipped across a table. Spain's neutrality was as real as Major Martin himself. Francis Haselden, the British vice-consul, played his part perfectly, demanded the body immediately, insisted on the briefcase, made a scene. The Spanish apologized. Said there were procedures, autopsies, paperwork, all while Klaus's contacts steamed open the briefcase in a back room. Here's what the Germans found. Water damage everywhere, but readable, just barely, like documents that had been submerged but not destroyed. Used special lights to read water-blurred ink, worked all night to decode what they thought was an accident of war. But Montagu had anticipated this. The ink he'd used was specifically chosen to blur but not disappear in salt water. The paper was treated to survive brief submersion. Even the water damage patterns were calculated. Too perfect, and it's suspicious. Too damaged, and it's useless. They'd found the sweet spot of believable decay. The Spanish coroner performed an autopsy, found fluid in the lungs, concluded drowning, never thought to test for phosphorus. Why would he? The body came from the sea. Case closed. What if that coroner had been more thorough? What if he'd noticed the body's internal decay didn't match fresh drowning? One curious medical examiner could have exposed everything, but Montagu had counted on wartime exhaustion. Overworked officials don't dig deeper than necessary. Human laziness as a weapon of war. The Germans were thorough though. They checked Martin's uniform, regulation. They verified his rank insignia, correct for his supposed position. They even confirmed the love letters paper was British manufacture. Pam's photograph was analysed, deemed authentic. Every test passed. Meanwhile, Haselden kept demanding the documents. sending increasingly angry cables to Madrid. The Spanish kept stalling, apologizing, promising soon, 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 soon. This dance lasted 3 days. 3 days for German intelligence to study every word, to make copies, to debate authenticity. In Berlin, skeptics emerged. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr, smelled deception, but the evidence was overwhelming. The personal touches. The sardines. God, the sardines convinced them. No one fakes sardines. The Spanish finally returned the briefcase. Seals intact. They assured Haseldon nothing had been disturbed. He thanked them, acted relieved, sent it to London immediately, where British experts confirmed the obvious. Every seal had been broken and carefully reglued. The Germans had swallowed the hook. Feel that satisfaction? That's premature, because convincing the Germans was only half the battle. Now they had to act on it, and that's where things got deadly. May 9, 1943. Hitler's military headquarters. The map of the Mediterranean spreads across the table. Generals lean in. Cigarette smoke hazes the air. One decision here will determine where 100,000 German soldiers will die. Admiral Dönitz speaks first. The documents are real. Too many confirmable details. The Greeks' resistance reports match. Allied ship movements support it. Hitler nods. He's always suspected Greece. The British need Mediterranean oil. Greece makes sense. But what if this is deception? Field Marshal Keitel asks the question everyone's thinking. Hitler's eyes narrow. He hates doubt, sees it as weakness. The documents confirm his intuition. And Hitler's intuition is German law. Here's what haunts me. Hitler was actually right to suspect Greece initially. It was the logical target. Better ports, closer to oil, direct threat to German positions. The British deception worked because it confirmed what Hitler wanted to believe. The most effective lies don't change minds. They confirm biases. Think about your social media feed. How many facts do you believe because they confirm what you already suspect? Operation Mincemeat, weaponized confirmation bias before psychologists even named it. Hitler orders immediate reinforcement of Greece. 3 panzer divisions, 2 infantry divisions, Luftwaffe squadrons, naval patrols. Resources stripped from Sicily, where 160,000 Allied troops are actually preparing to land. One dead homeless man just redirected the entire German war machine. General Erwin Rommel protests. Sicily is vulnerable. Hitler silences him with a look, suggests Rommel has gone soft since Africa. The room goes cold. No one else dares speak. But here's the genius detail. The Germans do reinforce Sicily too, just not enough. They spread their forces. Hedging bets. Greece gets the elite units. Sicily gets the leftovers. Half measures that will half protect nothing. If you're still here, you're about to witness how paranoia becomes its own poison. The Germans launch Operation Leopard. Massive reinforcement of Greece. Troops pulled from Russia, from France, from Italy. Every soldier moved is one less defending where the blow will actually fall. Railroad cars that should carry ammunition to Sicily carry concrete to Greece. Ships that should patrol Italian waters mine Greek harbors. Can you feel the momentum shifting? Like watching someone walk into traffic while looking the wrong way. You want to scream warnings, but this is history. The accident already happened. German intelligence goes into overdrive, checking Martin's story. They investigate the London clubs mentioned in his pocket litter. They verify Pam's address, real building. They even check the theatre tickets. That show did play that night. Every detail confirms the story because every detail was designed to. Meanwhile, in London, Montagu reads German radio intercepts. They're using emergency codes. Moving divisions, screaming about Greece. He allows himself 1 cigarette in celebration, then back to work, because the invasion is coming, and one German spy figuring out the truth could still cost thousands of lives. The Germans make one critical error. They assume British intelligence is incompetent, too bureaucratic, too proper. They can't imagine the British would use a corpse, too ungentlemanly. That assumption will cost them an empire. A German agent in London tries to verify Major Martin. Can't find records. Reports this to Berlin. Martin was obviously using an assumed name. Secret mission. Of course there's no record. The absence of evidence becomes evidence itself. Feel that twist? That's your brain trying to rationalize the irrational. The same mental gymnastics that make people believe conspiracy theories. or reject them when they're actually true. Operation Mincemeat worked because it understood human psychology better than humans understand themselves. By late May, German forces in Greece outnumber Sicily 3-1. Coastal defences face south toward Africa, not north toward Sicily. Fighter planes patrol the wrong waters. The trap is set, but not the one the Germans think. July 9th, 1943, 10 p.m. The Mediterranean is black glass, no moon, perfect for invasion. 60,000 Allied soldiers huddle in landing craft, seasick. Most don't know they owe their lives to a dead Welsh vagrant. The HMS Seraph surfaces again, same submarine that dropped Martin. Now it's guiding the invasion fleet. Lieutenant Jewell uses infrared beacons, invisible to German spotters, visible to Allied navigators. The ghost of Major Martin leading the living to war. In Sicily, Italian coastal defenders sleep. German reserves are 100 miles inland. Half strength, wrong positions. They expect a feint, a distraction from the real invasion of Greece. Even as shells start falling, German command argues it's not the main assault. Deception so complete the truth itself becomes unbelievable. Picture this. A German radar operator sees the invasion fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands of planes. He reports it. His commander checks the intelligence briefs. Greece is the target. This must be the diversion mentioned in Martin's documents. He tells the operator to keep watching, but doesn't sound the main alarm. 3 hours. That's how long German command debates before accepting Sicily is the real target. 3 hours of unopposed landings. 3 hours of establishing beachheads. 3 hours that will topple Mussolini and crack Hitler's fortress Europe. But what if one German officer had trusted his instincts over intelligence? What if Rommel had been in Sicily instead of Greece? What if the weather had been different, forcing delays that let Germans reconsider? History balances on what-ifs as thin as paper. The first Allied soldier steps onto Sicilian sand at 2045 a.m. Private Robert Watson, Canadian 1st Division. He expects machine gun fire. Later, he'll write home. It was like the Germans forgot we were coming. They hadn't forgotten. They'd been told to remember something else. By dawn, 50,000 Allied soldiers are ashore. Casualties are 90% below projections. Field hospitals prepared for 10,000 wounded treat 1,000. Blood plasma expires unused. Morphine stays packaged. Major Martin has saved more lives than any doctor. But here's what breaks my heart. Those German soldiers in Greece, scanning empty horizons, they're victims too. Fed false intelligence, fighting ghosts, dying for a lie they didn't even tell. War makes everyone both perpetrator and victim. In Berlin, Hitler rages, throws maps, screams about traitors, but still doesn't pull troops from Greece. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's paranoia. Maybe he still believes Greece is next. Even as Sicily falls, German forces remain frozen in Greece, waiting for an invasion that will never come. The Spanish eventually bury Major Martin. Full military honours. British flag on the coffin. The gravestone reads, William Martin, born 29th. March 1907, died 24th April 1943, beloved son of John Glinda Martin and the late Antonia Martin. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. Sweet and proper it is to die for one's country. But that's not who's in the grave. It's Glinda Michael. No birth date recorded, no family to notify. Died by suicide in January. Finally useful in death, finally visible in invisibility. Can you feel the tragedy in that triumph? A man so forgotten in life becomes unforgettable in death, but under someone else's name, someone else's story. Even his grave is a lie. You think you understand deception now. You've seen the operation, but you haven't seen the revolution it started. Operation Mincemeat didn't just fool the Germans. It rewrote the rules of reality itself. After Sicily falls, German intelligence conducts a post-mortem. How were they fooled? They check everything, re-examine the documents, interview Spanish officials, test the paper, analyze the ink. Everything still checks out. They conclude British intelligence got lucky. A real officer carrying real plans accidentally drowned. They can't conceive the entire thing was theatre, but some Germans suspect. Admiral Canaris orders new protocols. Trust nothing. Verify everything. Assume deception until proven otherwise. Paranoia becomes policy, which is exactly what the British want. Here's the poison. Once you know your enemy can deceive you completely, you doubt everything. Real intelligence looks fake. Fake intelligence might be real, or it might be fake meant to look real, or fake meant to look fake to seem real. Your mind eats itself. Think about modern life. Deep fakes, AI-generated content, photoshopped evidence. We live in Mincemeat's world. world now, where nothing can be trusted, where everything might be performance. How do you make decisions when reality itself is negotiable? The British learned different lessons. Deception works best when it confirms what targets want to believe. Give them their own thoughts in your voice. Make them smart for believing lies. Make truth look suspicious, and lies look obvious. Operation Bodyguard follows. The deception plan for D-Day. Fake armies in Scotland. Inflatable tanks in England. Radio traffic about invasions that won't happen. Pattern commanding forces that don't exist. The Germans fall for it all. Because after mincemeat, they know the Allies can lie. They just can't tell which lies are lies. What if Germany had won the intelligence war instead? What if they'd seen through mincemeat, reinforced Sicily, held the island? Italy stays in the war. D-Day gets delayed, maybe cancelled. The Soviets faced Germany alone longer. The atomic bomb might have fallen on Berlin instead of Hiroshima, but that's not what happened. What happened is German intelligence becomes paralyzed. They identify 12 possible invasion sites for D-Day, reinforce all of them inadequately, spread thin by suspicion, defeated by doubt before battles begin. Modern intelligence agencies study mincemeat religiously. CIA, KGB, Mossad, MI6, they've all run versions, dead drops with turned agents, fake defectors with real secrets, true lies wrapped in false truths. Every spy agency has a Montagu. Every government has a Martin. But here's what should terrify you. The techniques are public now. Anyone can study mincemeat, learn its lessons, apply its principles. That Nigerian prince email? That's mincemeat. That fake news story? That conspiracy theory that seemed too detailed to be false? Pure mincemeat. Montagu himself later wrote, "We created a person who never existed and made him more real than real people. Once you can do that, once you know it's possible, how do you ever trust anything again?" He spent his last years paranoid, checking everything, trusting nothing, the puppet master strangled by his own strings. Feel that uncertainty. That's mincemeat's true legacy, not the invasion of Sicily, not the fall of Mussolini, but the death of certainty itself. The birth of our post-truth world where everything is possible so nothing is certain. Behind every great deception stand invisible architects, the secretaries who typed false love letters, the clerks who aged documents, the women who gave life to lies. Their names are footnotes. Their contributions, fundamental. Jean Leslie, 21 years old, MI5 clerk. Her photograph became Pam, Martin's fictional fiancée. She didn't know until after the war. Imagine discovering your face sold a lie that killed thousands, that your smile, meant for a camera, became bait for slaughter. She later said, "I was proud to help, but sometimes I dream about German mothers who lost sons because they believed in my photograph. Do I apologize? Do I celebrate? Do I just forget?" You can't forget being part of history's greatest lie, even if your only crime was being pretty enough to be believable. Patricia Traherne worked in Room 13, Naval Intelligence. She typed Martin's love letters, chose the words, the hesitations, the stupid jokes lovers tell. She'd lost her fiancé at Dunkirk, knew exactly how desperate wartime love sounds. She weaponized her own grief. Listen to one line she wrote, "Don't take chances you don't have to take, darling. I couldn't bear it if anything happened to you." She was writing to a dead man, about dangers he'd never face, creating emotion from emptiness. Can you imagine that workspace? Women who'd lost lovers writing love letters for corpses, using their pain as ammunition, their sorrow as strategy, their broken hearts as weapons of war. Can you imagine that work? Well, Montagu's secretary. She bought Martin's underwear, his shirts, his shoes. Think about that. Shopping for a dead man, choosing clothes that looked worn, lived in, asking herself, what would a major wear? What would Pam find attractive? What screams authenticity? She even put receipts in his pockets, crumpled them again, added pencil marks, phone numbers without names, the debris of a life that never existed. She was a method actor for a corpse. But here's what haunts. These women knew they were creating evidence that would be scrutinized by German intelligence. One wrong detail, one anachronism, one impossible date or place, and Allied soldiers die. Can you feel that pressure? Every keystroke potentially fatal? They worked in basement rooms, no windows, cigarette smoke thick as fog, tea gone cold, typing through bombing raids, the building shaking, plaster falling. Because Martin needed to be perfect, and perfection takes time they didn't have. What if these women had refused, said it was too morbid, too twisted? How many operations fail because someone says, "This is insane," and walks away? But they stayed, they wove, they created. After the war, most returned to normal lives. Marriage, children, silence. They couldn't tell anyone what they'd done. Official Secrets Act. Their husbands never knew their wives had dressed corpses. Their children never knew their mothers wrote love letters that changed history. Jean Leslie married and moved to America. Never told her husband about Pam. He found out from a documentary in the 1990s. Asked her if it was true. She said yes. He asked why she never told him. She said, "Would you have married me if you knew I was the face of a lie that killed people?" He didn't answer. Some truths are too heavy for marriage to carry. Flick the coin. See the other side. The German intelligence officers who examined Martin's documents, who made the decision to believe, who signed their own death warrants with their analysis. WWII chief in Madrid, ambitious, desperate to please Berlin. He's the one who vouched for the document's authenticity, staked his career on it. His reports glow with certainty. Greece is the target. Sicily is distraction. He's never been more sure of anything. After Sicily falls, he maintains the documents were real. The British just changed plans. Bad weather, supply issues, something, anything but admitting he was fooled. He's transferred to the Eastern Front, dies in Soviet captivity, never admits error, never knows truth. But what if Kuhlenthal had been more skeptical, less eager? 1. This seems suspicious. Cable might have saved Sicily. But careers aren't built on skepticism. They're built on being right. And when being wrong means death, everyone becomes an optimist. Wehrmacht intelligence, a genuine genius, speaks 7 languages, photographic memory. He analyzes Martin's documents for inconsistencies, finds none, because there are none. Montagu was that thorough. Von Hohen later joins the plot to kill Hitler. He's caught, tortured, executed. But before dying, he confesses something stunning. He suspected mincemeat was deception, but confirmed it anyway. Why? He wanted Germany to lose, wanted Hitler defeated. He used British lies to commit German treason. Can you grasp that complexity? A German officer helping British deception succeed to defeat his own country to save it from itself. That's not black and white. That's every shade of grey bleeding together. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr, never fully believed mincemeat, but couldn't prove it false. Spent months investigating, sent agents to London, to Scotland, trying to verify Major Martin. Every inquiry came back positive or inconclusive, the absence of evidence becoming evidence of absence. Canaris was already secretly working against Hitler, feeding information to the Allies. But even he didn't know mincemeat was deception. He thought it might be, couldn't prove it. That uncertainty paralyzed German intelligence. When you can't trust your intelligence, you can't trust your decisions. He's executed in 1945, naked, hung with piano wire. Hitler's revenge for suspected treachery. Dies never knowing if Martin was real. That uncertainty followed him to the gallows. Every action has reactions, ripples spreading. Operation. First problem, other operations started copying mincemeat, but deception doesn't work when everyone expects it. By 1944, Germans assume everything is deception. Real intelligence gets dismissed. Fake intelligence gets overthought. Paranoia becomes paralysis. The British run Operation Copperhead. An actor impersonates General Montgomery in Gibraltar, making Germans think invasion is coming through Spain. Germans don't bite. They've learned. Once fooled, twice shy. The actor gives perfect performance to empty audience. What if every operation had worked? Would deception have become useless faster? Is failure sometimes necessary to preserve future success? Does losing battles help win wars? Second problem, Allied intelligence becomes overconfident. If mincemeat worked, anything can work. They plan increasingly elaborate deceptions. Operation Fortitude, Operation Zeppelin. Some succeed, some fail spectacularly. Hubris grown from success. The most dangerous enemy is previous victory. Third problem, post-war paranoia. Every country now knows complete deception is possible. Cold War intelligence becomes Hall of Mirrors. Nothing trusted, everything verified. Then verification gets verified. Resources wasted checking lies about lies. The Soviets study mincemeat obsessively, create their own versions. Dead drops with turned agents. Fake defectors with real secrets. The Americans counter with Operations Ajax and Mockingbird. Reality becomes negotiable commodity. Truth becomes vintage wine. Rare, expensive, usually fake. But here's the worst part. Mincemeat's techniques leak into civilian life. Marketing adopts false authenticity. Politics embraces manufactured evidence. Social media weaponizes personal details. We live in mincemeat's world, where nothing is certain, everything is possible, and possibility has become its own prison. Modern catfishing. Creating false personas so real people fall in love with them. Nigerian prince emails, mincemeat. Too many authentic details to be fake. Deep fakes, political disinformation, all children of Major Martin. He proved reality could be manufactured. That proof has been terrorizing the world ever since. Heavy words from a son about his father. But accurate. Because dismissing it seemed paranoid. Those are all mincemeat markers. You've been trained to be fooled. Let's talk about cost. Not money. Not even lives, but souls. Operation Mincemeat saved 40,000 Allied soldiers. But what did it cost the people who created it? Not really. Spent his last years obsessed with deception. Saw it everywhere. In newspapers, in conversations, in his own memories. His wife said he'd wake up asking, "Is this real?" She'd have to convince him. Daily. That breakfast was real. That he was real. That he was real. When you create false reality professionally, how do you return to true reality personally? You don't. The skills that make great deceivers make terrible humans. Suspicious. Paranoid. Alone. Charles Cholmondeley drank himself to death. Quietly. Properly. Britishly. Never talked about mincemeat. Never claimed credit. Never escaped it either. His liver gave out in 1962. His last words, "Did we win?" The nurse thought he meant the war. He meant something else. Jean Leslie, whose photo became Pam, developed face blindness, psychosomatic, couldn't recognize people. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. Her brain just stopped trusting faces. After being the face of a lie, no face seemed true. Lieutenant Jewell, who dropped Martin's body, suffered nightmares. The same dream. He's swimming. Finds Martin floating. Martin opens his eyes. Asks, why? Jewell wakes up every night for 30 years until he died. Some ghosts don't need to be real to haunt you. But what about the Germans who believed? Who made decisions based on lies? Who sent soldiers to die in the wrong places? Their victims too, manipulated, deceived, defeated by fiction. Their shame followed them past war's end. You're scrolling through your phone. A news alert pops up. Political scandal, corporate leak, celebrity death. How do you know it's real? You don't. You're living in the world mincemeat built. Every intelligence agency has a mincemeat department now. Different names, same purpose. Manufacturing reality. The CIA calls it perception management. The FSB calls it active measures. China calls it unrestricted warfare. But it's all mincemeat. All corpses carrying briefcases. Remember Cambridge Analytica? Harvesting personal data to create psychological profiles? That's mincemeat scaled up. Instead of one fake person, millions of real people get fake narratives tailored to their biases. Instead of fooling German intelligence, they're fooling you. Think about the leaked documents that appear online. WikiLeaks, Panama Papers, Twitter files. How many are real? How many are mincemeat? Partial truths hiding bigger lies? Real documents with fake ones mixed in? You'll never know. That's the point. Modern mincemeat doesn't need corpses. It needs clicks, shares, retweets. You become the courier, spreading documents you can't verify, believing stories you can't confirm. The German intelligence officers examining Martin's papers? That's you examining your newsfeed. But here's what's different. In verify, deceive enemy, save lives, win war. Modern mincemeat. Sometimes there's no purpose except chaos, no enemy except truth, no victory except confusion. What if I told you Operation Mincemeat was just the prototype, the beta test, that the real operation is happening now, and you're both the corpse and the German intelligence officer? By 2030, experts predict 90% of online content will be AI generated, not just text, images, videos, audio, entire websites, entire histories, entire people. Major Martin multiplied by millions, each tailored to specific demographics, each carrying briefcases full of targeted lies. Imagine AI that knows you better than you know yourself, knows your biases, your fears, your desires, creates perfect mincemeat just for you, stories you'll believe because they confirm what you want to believe, evidence you'll accept because dismissing it would mean admitting you're wrong. That's not imagination. That's next Tuesday. The technology exists. It's being deployed. Right now, someone is crafting your personal Major Martin, and you'll probably thank them for it. But here's the nightmare. What happens when everyone has their own reality? When there's no shared truth, no common ground, no mutual facts? Democracy requires consensus. Society requires agreement. Humanity requires connection. All impossible in a world of infinite mincemeats. We're already seeing it. Political polarization, where each side literally lives in different realities. Can't agree on basic facts. Can't even agree on what facts are. Each side convinced the other is deceived. Both right. What if there's no solution? What if Pandora's box can't be closed? What if mincemeat was humanity's forbidden fruit? The knowledge that reality is optional. That truth is constructible. That everything is possible, so nothing is certain. Here's the twist that nobody talks about. The detail that changes everything. Operation Mincemeat is still active, not literally, but functionally. The body is still floating, the briefcase still chained, the documents still being read. By you, by me, by everyone trying to understand what's real in a world where real is negotiable. Every time someone cites mincemeat as example of successful deception, they're continuing the operation. Every documentary, every book, every YouTube video like this one. We're all keeping Major Martin alive, or keeping Glinda Michael dead, depending on your perspective. But what if that's the point? What if the real deception wasn't fooling the Germans? What if it was creating a story so compelling that we'd retell it forever, teaching each generation that reality is optional, that truth is tactical, that corpses can be spies? Think about what you've learned, not just facts, but possibilities. You now know complete deception is achievable. That knowledge changes you, makes you suspicious, makes you vulnerable, makes you dangerous. You've been mincemeated by learning about mincemeat. The British government kept mincemeat classified for 50 years, not to protect methods. Those were obsolete by 1945, but to protect something else. Once everyone knows everything might be fake, society collapses into paranoid fragments. And that's exactly what's happening. We're fragmenting, each choosing our own Martins to believe, each suspicious of others' Martins, each alone in our manufactured realities. The operation succeeded so completely, it's destroying what it was meant to protect. So here's the final question. The one that matters. In a world where any corpse can carry any briefcase with any documents, where anything can be true and everything might be false, how do you choose what to believe? You can't verify everything. Too exhausting. You can't trust nothing. Too isolating. You can't know, absolutely. Too impossible. So what do? Maybe you develop new instincts. Maybe you find truth in the spaces between lies, or maybe you just float, like Martin, carrying whatever briefcase someone chains to your wrist, believing whatever documents they put inside. That homeless man, Glinda Michael, who ate rat poison in January 1943, he wanted to disappear, to stop existing, to escape a world that had no place for him. Instead, he became eternal, not as himself, but as someone invented, someone impossible, someone who changed everything by being nothing. Every conspiracy theory, every fake news story, every deepfake, every catfish, every phishing email, every piece of disinformation. They all carry Glinda's DNA. He's the father of our post-truth age, the patron saint of deception, the ghost in every machine. And we're all his children now, living in the world his corpse created, where death can speak, where lies can live, where nothing is certain except uncertainty itself, where every truth might be a trick, and every trick might be true. So the next time you read a document, watch a video, believe a story, remember Major William Martin, remember he never existed, remember thousands died believing he did. Remember you might be believing your own Martin right now, because in the end we're all floating in the Mediterranean, all carrying briefcases, all washing up on shores where strangers will read our documents and decide what's real. The only difference is whether we're the corpse or the intelligence officer. And honestly, sometimes there is no difference. Subscribe if you want more history that haunts your present. Comment below. What modern mincemeat have you spotted? What Martins are floating in your feed? Share this with someone who thinks they can spot every lie. Prove them wrong. Because if Operation Mincemeat taught us anything, it's this. The most powerful lies aren't the ones we tell, they're the ones we believe. And the most dangerous deceivers aren't the ones who fool us. They're the ones who teach us to fool ourselves. As Montagu himself wrote before he died, we created fiction that became fact. Now all facts look like fiction. God help us all. God help us indeed.